I put off playing The Witness for a while. I got it for free via the Epic Game Store, and at the time my computer was nowhere near good enough to play it. But last year I decided to finally play through it, and wow. The level of thought that went into its design is astounding, and I know it's probably been talked about to death, but I need more people to know about this game. So here's why I love The Witness. Before I start the video, I want to make something really clear. If you haven't played this game, please do. This is a game wherein most of the joy is in the first experience, and I am going to be spoiling things. If you're watching this on release, today is The Witness's 10th anniversary, so hopefully it's on sale. If not, it's on sales and in bundles pretty regularly. Now with that out of the way, The Witness is a game about drawing lines. You start with just a straight line, then some curves are added, then some dead ends, and so forth. Having such a simple concept be the core mechanic makes the game extremely approachable, although for there to be an engaging difficulty curve, more things have to be introduced. One family of these aspects is explorative. Puzzles of this family ask you to literally look at things from a new perspective in order to solve them. This could be through the use of light, like in the desert or the forest, or through objects, like the apples in the orchard or the roots of the monastery. The other family of mechanics is experimentative. This family uses various symbols to modify each puzzle solution in some way. For example, hexagons must be drawn through, while blocks must have their form unaltered. Of course, these mechanics are not used exclusively in isolation. An example of this is this panel in the town. This puzzle has 3 solutions, each of which is found using a different method. One requires you to avoid the shadows from the branches above, another requires you to go around the corner and map the path from vines, and the third has you climb the roof and use the reflection from the sun. Furthermore, these puzzles don't have to be constrained to one family, as shown in the bunker. This area uses squares which you have to separate based on color. However, at first glance, some of the puzzles seem impossible. This is because there are tinted windows which change the color of the squares when you look through them. This progresses to looking through multiple colored panes simultaneously, and eventually culminates in an elevator with a single puzzle. Each time you solve this puzzle, it moves you up a floor, and since each floor is filtered through a different light, the solution of the puzzle continuously changes. Now you may be wondering why I specifically label those mechanics as experimentative and explorative. This is because those are 2 of the main principles baked into the game's design. Experimentation is exhibited in how the mechanics are taught to you. In a more traditional game, there would be a section at the beginning that explains the core mechanics and how they interact. The Witness doesn't have this. This is not to say it doesn't teach you, just that it does so in a different way. Spread across the island are small tutorial areas that introduce each symbol in its simplest form, usually starting with screens that have only a handful of possible solutions. From there, you're tasked with figuring out what each symbol actually does through trial, error, and intuition. This is aided by the fact that there is often no punishment for inputting a wrong solution, which allows you to pursue multiple ideas without consequence. Exploration is also extremely prevalent in The Witness's design. Although there are 11 lasers to activate, only 7 are necessary to beat the game, and you can choose whichever 7 you want. This non-linearity is furthered by certain areas having completely skippable sections. The Keep is a great example of this, being split into 2 halves that both independently allow the activation of its laser. Another facet of exploration is the addition of environmental puzzles. Ordinarily, each puzzle is presented to you on a small square screen, but there are some puzzles that exist on the world itself. This encourages you to look around and be mindful of details you normally wouldn't pay attention to. This is especially pertinent to areas like the shipwreck, which have very few screen puzzles, but in their stead offer several environmental puzzles. Now of course, The Witness is not a perfect game, and is a big proponent of being vocal about the flaws and the things we love. I want to list off a few. One of my bigger gripes with this game is the inclusion of timed puzzles surrounding the end of the game. Apart from being unnecessarily stressful, I think timed puzzles discourage experimentation, which as aforementioned is core to this game. When playing through these sections, I spent less time consulting my understanding of the mechanics and more time just praying that the answer would be obvious at first glance. This is especially true of these mountain doors, where the time window is so small that you only get 1 or 2 attempts before it changes the puzzle. Additionally, some of the time puzzles in the optional challenge area are impossible. Fortunately, they can be avoided since you are always offered 3 choices, but having to move to another puzzle wastes your already limited time. A smaller gripe I have is that although I said there is often no punishment for inputting a wrong solution, there sometimes is, although it could be completely removed at no expense, since as it is, you just go back and immediately resolve the last puzzle. The last thing I want to talk about is accessibility. If you have difficulties in auditory processing or have certain types of color blindness, some areas will be more difficult for you. And if you have visual hypersensitivity or have photosensitive epilepsy, then you should be aware that certain puzzles in the final area of the game will likely trigger those. If you look for best games of 2016 or best puzzle games, The Witness will likely make the list. However, I had never heard of it until it landed in my library, and didn't hear about it again until I decided to play it 8 years later, despite Jonathan Blow's previous work Braid being so highly praised. So if this video is your first introduction to this game, please listen to me when I say if you like puzzle games, you'll probably like this one too. And if you're concerned about me having ruined the magic, rest assured, I've left enough out for you to still experience a lot of what makes me love this game.